Hi, in this tips and tricks video we're going to be looking at one of the new features for the new version of VUE, which is the creation of your own MetaClouds. So let's get started by creating a very simple overall envelope, as it were, for the clouds. So I'm just going to use a sphere. The first thing I'm going to do is resize that sphere. I'm just going to do this by eye initially, and we'll look at the overall size once we have a shape that we like. So I'm just going to copy and paste that sphere, move it to the side. Let's make sure it's in the correct direction. We'll have another one, and we'll have another one. Okay, so now when we put in the next one, I'm going to make this one slightly smaller and just move it up a little bit. You can see what I'm trying to do is just create a pleasant overall basic shape for a cloud. It's going to be a little bit simple at first, but we're going to edit it later. So again, copy and paste, just build it up very quickly. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that overall shape. I'm going to select all the spheres by pressing Shift and clicking the top because the bottom one was selected, and I'm going to create a MetaBlob object. Now the reason I'm going to create this MetaBlob is because if you just create the cloud from individual spheres, you'll get however many spheres, let's say 8 spheres, 8 separate clouds. I want this to be one whole complete cloud. So I have my MetaBlob, and I'm going to go over here to where the cloud settings are for MetaClouds. I'm going to right click to expand the menu, and the second one from the end is the convert to MetaCloud. So the dialog box pops up. We've got conversion accuracy, sphere density, inflate the cloud spheres, jitter sphere position, and the bake quality of the MetaBlob itself. I generally leave the bake quality down quite low because we're making a fairly natural looking cloud, so we don't need to be that massively accurate in terms of the bake quality. And so what we're going to look at is initially the conversion accuracy. Again, because it's a naturalistic cloud, it doesn't need to be massively high. Sphere density, I'm going to leave all the settings as they stand at the moment because we have the opportunity that once this has been converted to re-look at this. So let's look at what VUE's created. A whole bunch of metaspheres, as it were. You can see the basic shape of the cloud with some larger spheres. What we're creating is something that we can edit further on down the line. You can see the overall effect, which is a bit of a mess. So let's say we're not happy with this. Let's up the conversion accuracy. And I might not want to inflate the cloud spheres that much. And we'll click apply again. So VUE will look at the new settings and rejig everything accordingly, and we'll see what we get. So you can see we've got a much smaller envelope overall. We've got a higher density. This little gap here may be an issue, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So let's click OK, and let's start editing. What I'm going to do first of all is, because I want a fairly consistent base to the cloud, I'm just going to press Control and click on the sphere I want to move, and I'm going to move it up. So all I'm going to do is just tidy this initial overall arrangement up so I don't get too many protrusions in the base of the cloud. Okay. So let's, at this stage, because scale is quite important for clouds and the materials, you can see we're at 3.5 kilometers. I'm going to reduce that down a little bit. 2.39, about 1.5, I think will be yeah, that'll do, 1.26. Okay. So now let's have a look at the material quickly, because we want to get a better idea of how our cloud's performing. So I'm going to tweak a few settings. I'm going to increase the density and the opacity initially, just so I can see the shape. I'm going to reduce the ambient lighting, and I'm certainly going to reduce the sharpness at this point. I'm going to make it less uniform and put more variations in there. I'm just going to increase the roughness a little bit because that will fill the shapes up. You can see now that we've got a lot more blobby shape. The scaling refers to the overall scale of the details, so I'm going to leave that as it is at the moment, and I'll reduce the amount of detail just so that we can start appreciating what we've got. The important thing to remember with these new MetaClouds is that you are not stuck with an end result. So for instance, it's a bit boring at the moment, so we can go in and we can start editing. So for instance, this sphere here, I'm going to squish it so that it closely covers the smaller spheres. Okay. And this enormous sphere here, I don't know what to do about that at the moment, so I'll just reduce its scale, move it across a wee bit. And now you can see we've got a much more uniform kind of shape. So I'm going to go ahead and edit it further by selecting a sphere, going back to the cloud menu, right click, and there's an icon here which means we can add a MetaCloud primitive. So VUE will go ahead and create a new sphere identical to the sphere we just selected. So as I say, I'm just going to build up the shape of this cloud and make it a little bit more interesting. Let's make that a little bit bigger still. We can also add a MetaCloud primitive just by copying and pasting. So if I Control C and Control V, I've created another sphere. In many respects, it's an easier way to control what you're getting, and I can paste again, Control V. Let's get some height on this. Okay, that's better. Now at the moment, it's looking a little bit boring down here, so I'm going to take this bottom cloud, I'm going to stretch it out a wee bit. Maybe fatten it back up there, extend it a little bit further. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste that one again and just reduce the size of that. Move it back into the cloud and stretch it out so that the cloud's got a more consistent base. Now again, it's time to look at the material because at the moment that's looking a little bit cartoony. So let's decrease the roughness, and that's going to put a little bit more detail in between the spheres, and I'm going to reduce the coverage. Let's do a quick preview of what we've got. Let's render to screen, render. Okay, so we've got a fairly decent looking cloud that can be worked on and edited further. Let's just quickly edit this further because there's an odd little bit just there. Let's try and work out what we've got. This is around this area, isn't it? So let's copy and paste a sphere. Control C, Control V, drag it across. Let's see where it is. There you see it's ended up right in the middle and I want it out here. And we can increase the size of that. So that's covered up that nasty bit. So again, at this time it's quite relevant to just check that we're not getting too big. But it all depends on your scene and your decision about how clouds should look within your scene. I'm going to give it more detail, some more feathering. Okay, I shouldn't have clicked them because it froze the preview, but we'll just do a quick preview render. So you can see we're beginning to get a nice looking cloud. I would be quite happy to increase the base size, but this editing can go on as long as you want it to go on. Again, copy and paste the sphere, and we'll just make that over here. And we'll just increase the size. That's getting a little bit more interesting. And one more. I find this to be quite an addictive process, to be honest. I could spend hours building clouds and have done during the testing process. Let's stretch that across. There we go. So it all blends together a bit better. So you can see very, very quickly you can build a cloud. I mean, that's taken me, 10 minutes? And I'm not particularly trying too hard. But you can see we've got quite an interesting cloud shape going on. I hope that's been useful for you. There's going to be more tips and tricks videos looking at different ways of creating MetaClouds. But please feel free to comment and give us some feedback via social media and YouTube. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.